Good morning and welcome back to Football League World TV. We've got the weekend review show first up this week. Joining me is Chris Thorpe and Ned Holmes. Chris, did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, not too bad. Obviously, just working through all the postponed games, but it was good to see some were on and yeah, looking forward to going through them now, mate.
Yeah, really disrupted calendar over the weekend. Ned, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Just as I was saying, just before the start of the show, got a positive COVID test on Saturday, which was a bit gutting. Not least because it doesn't seem like there's going to be any football on to sort of keep me going. But I feel all right, and I guess that's the important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We're streaming across Facebook, YouTube and Twitter this morning. So anybody joining us, please get in the comments and let us know your thoughts if you've been out at an EFL game this weekend. There was plenty of postponements, but we've managed to pick some games to review this morning. So we'll get straight into it. Championship up first, and we're going to look at Saturday lunchtime's game between Middlesbrough and Bournemouth, a 1-0 win for Borough. Andres Sporer with a second half penalty to secure the points for Chris Wilder's side. It's now 3 wins in 4 for Middlesbrough, and Sporer has ended a 8-game run without a goal. Firstly, Chris, how important do you think it is for the striker to get that goal at the weekend?
Yeah, massively important. I mean, coming in from a big club like Sporting Lisbon on loan, there's always going to be that expectation there. Obviously, sort of hit the ground running when he came in. Form's been a bit patchy since. So to get back amongst the goals moving towards the new year, it's absolutely vital for him and obviously vital for Middlesbrough as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Middlesbrough's form under Wilder in the last few weeks has been really good. I'll stick with you here, Chris. How impressed have you been with the last couple of weeks at the Riverside Stadium?
Yeah, I've been really impressed, but at the same time, I'm not too surprised because Chris Wilder's bread and butter is the Football League. Northampton, Oxford United, obviously Sheffield United, most notably. You only have to look at his performances and his record at those clubs to know that he knows how to, do well in these divisions, and he knows how to pick clubs up that aren't necessarily on the right run of form. So I think it's only going to continue into the new year, and obviously he's got January to play with and look to bring in some new players. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting.
Absolutely. One player I want to speak about is Isaiah Jones at right wing back. I think that he's been absolutely exceptional in recent weeks for Middlesbrough. He was really good when I watched them live at Huddersfield back end of last month, and he was really good on Saturday. Won the penalty for the obviously winning goal. Ned, what have you made of Isaiah Jones under Chris Wilder? It seems to be a really good fit, the system for him, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, watching the game on Saturday, I was pretty blown away by him. Really, I mean, you've got to consider he's coming up against Jordan Zamora. So a lot of people think it's probably be one of the best left backs in the league this season, and nor him, not anyone really could stop Jones. It was a constant outlet for Borough, and I think it's almost he's got that sort of pace that almost has to be seen to be believed. I don't think he's quite the full package yet, but I think that's almost a positive for Borough. There's so much more that he can add to his game. I think we could see him add a bit more end product that I guess making the right decisions and then having the quality to really follow those through, it could certainly be improved. But what a hugely impressive performance in what's fast becoming a real breakthrough year for Isaiah Jones. It's going to make that Jed Spence situation really, really interesting, and could actually be massive for Jones's development even further to bring someone like Jed Spence back and have that sort of covering competition aspect.
Absolutely. We've had a couple of comments in from Harry here. Firstly, he said, agree on Isaiah Jones. He looks immense. He's a Sunderland fan, so it's a really complimentary there. And then he's mentioned the Jed Spence situation. Do they even need Jed Spence back in January now? Ned, you've touched on it there. What would you be thinking if you were Chris Wilder at the minute with Jones in such good form and Spence to potentially come back?
I mean, I know there's been a lot of talk about Jed Spence, but reportedly, I think it's the Athletic suggesting that he wants to stay on at the City ground for the end of the season. But I think personally, if I'm Borough, I'm being selfish. I'm being bullish. This is our player. The Championship's a long season. Isaiah Jones has been excellent, over the last few months, but you never know what's going to happen with injury, with form, and beyond that. To have potentially two of the most impressive right wing backs or right-sided defenders in the division, at Chris Wilder's disposal for the second half of the season's massive to their playoff hopes. Not only that, hugely weakens a rival. for me, as sad as it is for Forest and perhaps Spence, who you can see why he'd want to stay under Cooper, it's a no-brainer to Borough to trigger that clause for me.
Absolutely. Middlesbrough fans, if you're joining us this morning, get yourselves in the comments. Let us know your thoughts on whether Jed Spence should be recalled. Now, Bournemouth, though, it's no win since November 6th now for Scott Parker's side. And, we've got to take into consideration that they've played some good teams in that run. They've obviously played Fulham, they've played Blackburn. But, Chris, what do you think's going on at Bournemouth at the minute?
You know what? I just think it's a hangover from the fact that they've had that good form already. Every team's going to go through these patches where they don't do too well and they don't, meet the expectations that they perhaps already set earlier in the campaign. You still look at, they're still in second place. Not too much to panic about. Obviously, no wins in 6 now? That's going to be a tad worrying, but at the same time, they could bounce back in their next game. And then also you've also got January to think about. I do think they'll bring in 1 or 2 players. They've obviously got the finances to do it. I still think things are still looking positive for Bournemouth, even though results haven't gone their way recently.
I don't think Wayne's agreeing with you there, Chris. Bournemouth wheels are coming off. He's quite damning there with his verdict on the Cherries. Elsewhere on Saturday, Blackburn Rovers 4, Birmingham City 0. A really impressive display from Blackburn, and Ben Brereton Diaz with another brace. That's 19 goals for the season now. It's 5 wins on the spin for Blackburn, and they're up into 3rd in the table. Ned, where's this season going for Blackburn? Because all of a sudden they're a point off second and only 3 points behind Fulham ahead of tonight's game.
I mean, you certainly can't rule them out of that race for the top 2, but I think still, I do think playoffs is probably the most likely finish for them. But I mean, you've got to talk about how outstanding this current run is, and I think the confidence was oozing out of them on the weekend. Not just that Brereton Diaz chip for the hat trick, which didn't quite come off, but some of those the driving out the back of the back 3, the passes through the one-touch play and those sort of creative moments in midfield, and obviously that touch and finish by Kadra, all just illustrate, how high in confidence that the whole squad feels right now. But I think the most important thing is that these runs don't last forever. We see teams do this all the time. It's going to be about how Tony Mowbray's side bounce back. Once the win ends, how consistent can they continue to be? Because I think we can assume that a team like Fulham and teams like Bournemouth are going to get back on, they're going to find their feet again, and they're going to be churning out results. And it's about whether Blackburn can really keep up with them. January is going to be interesting, I think. I don't see Brereton Diaz being sold at, there's talks over the weekend it's going to cost 25 million. I'm not sure anyone's going to pay that in January. And I don't see why Blackburn, who it's not easy for a club like them who don't have a huge amount of money to get to this position, and I don't see why they would sell. But there has been talk about loans coming in and transfers coming in, so that could be really big for them. As I said at the top, I don't think we should rule them out of that, but I do think we're still looking at playoffs is really what I expect them to be by the end of the season.
Yeah, it's looking good at the minute. As for Birmingham, one side note that came out after the game was reports of Harley Dean being placed on the transfer list heading into January. Just in general for Lee Bowyer, Chris, there's a lot of work to be done at St Andrews, isn't there?
Yeah, no wins in 3, -8 goal difference. Not looking good for them. Very inconsistent. And to come out after the game and say you're putting your captain up for sale isn't the most ideal of things. But I suppose if you've got a player that's just not hitting the standards that you expect, then you may as well get shot of him, to be fair. I know he's been a regular for them ever since he joined from Brentford. So, yeah, a bit of a risk, but I can imagine Troy Deeney will take on the captaincy if Dean does leave. It's a bit of a strange situation for Birmingham right now. They seem to be sort of stuttering to a halt under Bowyer. But, he's a good manager, so perhaps January his saving grace and also their saving grace and get him moving up the standings.
Absolutely. Bowyer will be earning his corn in the January transfer window. Elsewhere on Saturday, Huddersfield Town were 3-2 winners over Bristol City at Ashton Gate. Dwayne Holmes, Dan El Sanani and Danny Ward all on the score sheet for Huddersfield, with Andy Wyman getting a brace for Bristol City right at the start of the game and right at the end of the game. It was only a third away win of the season for Huddersfield in the Championship. They've been far better at the John Smith Stadium. And all three of Corberan's attacking players that were on the pitch got on the score sheet. That's a good sign, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah, definitely. Fair play to him and fair play to Huddersfield. Obviously, his first season there wasn't the easiest, and he did really well to, I think, even stay in a job. I know there wasn't too much talk that he might lose it, but the club have obviously stuck by him, and he's still a very much young coach, if you like, and still making his way in the Football League after leaving Leeds and moving to the John Smiths. But no, they play some good football. They're not always going to dominate possession, but at the same time, they get goals from all areas, which I think is really helping them. And to obviously get a result away at Bristol City is brilliant. And yeah, again, they might be another team that in January they'll look to add to the team. I know they made a few signings during the summer. Jordan Rose being one, obviously hasn't really worked out. So perhaps they'll maybe look at the striking situation. Who knows? But yeah, I think it's a great win for them. And obviously to get 3 away wins on the board now is building good foundations for the future.
Absolutely. It's been a tough couple of weeks for Huddersfield, so this was a big win. As for Bristol City, we've just discussed Birmingham, and my sort of view of Bristol City is they're in a little bit of a similar situation to Birmingham, where there's definitely work to do for the manager, and they just feel like they're drifting a little bit. Ned, you're a Bristol City fan. What's the sort of mood like at the club at the minute and amongst the fans?
Well, I think just firstly talk about yesterday's game. I felt like there was certainly. I don't think City were out of it. I think there was you wouldn't say they were unlucky necessarily given the amount of chances they conceded, but Pearson rolled the dice a little. Played Eamon Benarous and Alex Scott, two 18-year-old attacking midfielders as wing backs, and that was always going to be a risk. Not to the fault of the two teenagers, because they were trying their hardest, but didn't quite come off. But I think it was positive to see City creating more opportunities going forward than we have in recent weeks. And in terms of progress, I think this season for City fans has felt a little bit like one step forward, 2 steps back. Every time it seems like that they've turned a corner, they'll falter again, that they'll have a terrible performance. Injuries to Matty James for a long time hasn't helped, and neither has the club's failure to bring in a replacement for Famara Diédhiou in the summer window. And I think Chris Martin, as much as he works hard and he'll give you a lot, I'm not sure he is good enough for what Bristol City want. Andy Wyman, I've got no complaints about really. He'll run himself to death. But I do think what I want, I guess what City fans want to see is what exactly are their team going to be under Nigel Pearson. And I don't think they know that yet. I don't think they know exactly what the identity of the team are, and that's difficult, particularly when you're not even having success and you're not winning games. January is going to be a really interesting point. Pearson himself has said that the players that aren't on side, he's going to get rid of, basically, and who they'll be, I suspect Casey Palmer and Jay De Silva are two among those, given how they've fallen out of favour at the moment. And then there's CEO Richard Gould has sort of suggested that the club, because they haven't made the progress they wanted in the last few months, will look to bring in players. So I think it's going to be an interesting point. But in terms of how City fans feel, I think a little bit dejected, because the sacking of Lee Johnson a year and a half or 2 years ago, or maybe even a year ago. Anyway, it was supposed to be a point that would allow us to take a step forward as a club, to finally get over that step. And if anything, we've slid miles back. And I'm not concerned about relegation this season or anything like that. To be honest, I think we should have too much given the points deduction to other clubs and some of the performances that the team has showed. But I think there's a disconnect at the moment between the fans and the players on the pitch. I think sometimes the performances show a team that is either not good enough or don't care enough. And I heard someone say that if the majority of City fans right now, if they had the choice to sort of cash in this whole squad and bring in a whole new fresh squad, roll the dice, they'd probably do that. And I think that speaks to that disconnect. One thing I do want to say about Bristol City fans is it was an embarrassing display, but by a select few of them on Saturday. The game stopped between about 60 minutes and 65 or somewhere like that, when City were chasing the game, and some select idiots in section 82, which for the most part are a fantastic section of the fan base, were throwing bottles and coins and stuff at Sorba Thomas. When your team's chasing the game, I don't really see what you gain from that. And worse still, that there was a fan kicked out for racial abuse. And I've heard suggestions his season ticket details were taken down and stuff like that. So hopefully he'll be banned for life or something like that. But I can understand some fans are feeling dejected and disconnected at the moment. But that's an embarrassment, to be honest, and that's something that I don't think the majority of City fans will want to be linked to.
A really good statement there, Ned. Elsewhere in the Championship over the weekend, as we've mentioned, there was quite limited fixtures. Barnsley 0, West Brom 0. Nottingham Forest were 2-1 winners over Hull City. They're up into 7th now, actually, and Blackpool were 3-1 winners against Peterborough. Right, we're going to look at League One next. First game we're going to look at in League One was Rotherham's 1-0 win over Cambridge. Dan Barlaser with a lovely finish to seal the points there. Rotherham are continuing to go strong in League One. Chris, this was quite a tough afternoon to overcome for Rotherham, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, Cambridge have really sort of surprised a lot of people with their form at the Abbey this season. Just to reel off a few names, your Ipswiches, your Sheffield Wednesdays, they found it tough when they went there, and obviously Rotherham the same. But in the end, they saw it through, and I think that's the difference between them and the other teams that you'd expect to be up there for promotion. They've always got the ability to grind out these results away from home, and obviously their home form's superb as well. It was a brilliant team goal that Barlaser finished off, and again, as I've said previously on other shows, it shows that they're not just this direct team that they get made out to be. They can play good football when they want to, and it was superb. And to get a clean sheet on the road as well, it's everything you want from an away victory. So fair play to him.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just everything just seems to be falling into place again for Paul Warne, as we so often see in League One. Ned, can you see anyone stopping Rotherham this season? Really?
I think we should. I think in some ways we should, be a bit cautious. It's still early days. It's not like they've created a huge gap ahead of the rest of the field, and you never know what's going to happen. A bid for someone like Dan Barlaser in January, who's been so impressive, adding goals to his game this season. I think he's already far exceeded his single season goal record, and you never know. I mean, as you say, this is just what Paul Warne and his side do, isn't it? They're just so good at sort of bouncing back from the frustration of the Championship relegation, almost using that and dominating in League One. That's exactly what they're doing. They're grinding out results, but I just think maybe we should access a bit of caution given how long is to go in the season, and they haven't exactly opened up a huge gap just yet.
Yeah, we've had a comment in from Liam. He thinks that Rotherham are showing that they are champions, not always glamorous, but they can get the wins. The team that's chasing them down in League One, who actually have a game in hand, is Wigan. They were 3-2 winners at Oxford at the weekend. 5-goal thriller. Wigan snatched it late on. It was a topsy-turvy afternoon and a great game for the neutral, I'd imagine. But Wigan come out on top, given the postponements, elsewhere in the division over the weekend. Ned, it was important for Wigan to get this win and just sort of keep a little bit of daylight between themselves and Sunderland, wasn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think a team like Sunderland under Lee Johnson, you kind of know they're always going to go on those sort of long runs of wins. So for Wigan, I think they just have to keep plugging along. And as we talked a little bit about it with Rotherham, we talked about it with Rotherham about coming out on top in games, and you called it topsy-turvy. I think it's exactly that. I mean, this could easily have gone the other way. There's a chance for Matty Taylor, which he put over the bar. There were other opportunities in it, and it was only a bit of a late magic from James McLean, which sort of helped them win it. But Liam Richardson and his team, they just, it's not about It's not about the fact that either team could have won that is important this week. With so, as you say, with so many teams not playing, those 3 points on the board look absolutely massive now, given we don't know what the rescheduling is going to be like. So huge for Wigan to keep that momentum and keep that distance.
Absolutely. We've seen how important points per game is. Hopefully it won't come to that, but we have seen that in the past. As for Oxford, they're still proving to be a real force, say, in the top 6 in League One. They're still a contender, Chris. This isn't really anything to worry about, losing to Wigan, is it?
No, definitely not. They're going to have these results where, they come up against teams that arguably have the same as or if more quality than them. And I think this was the case with Wigan. Obviously spent heavily in the summer, as everyone knows, and one of many people's favourites for promotion this season. So it's no surprise to see them doing so well. But yeah, no, Oxford, they've got good quality in the side. And again, I think they'll strengthen in January. So I wouldn't have too many worries about them, though.
Absolutely not. Going well for the top 2 in League One at the minute and wins over the weekend. Right, League 2 to finish the show. First game we're going to look at in League 2 was Sutton's 1-0 win over Harrogate. Donovan Wilson with the goal there. Sutton up to 3rd now. I mean, Chris, I'll come to you first here. Surprised the fact that they're in 3rd?
Yeah, very. When Sutton got into the Football League, I think I was shocked. It's only 10 minutes down the road from me, and as long as I've known them, they've always been in the Ryman League or the Conference South. So it's ridiculous that they got this high. So fair play to them. They've done superb, and you never know. Like, I wouldn't bounce back against them to not keep this up. I think they could keep it up, because I think League 2 is one of those leagues where it's everyone's sort of to win in a way. I don't think they're going to win the league. I'm not saying that, but I do think they could potentially get the playoffs. But they've built a great side. Matt Gray's obviously done a great job there, taking over from the previous manager who've been there for quite a while as well. And they've built it sort of around a lot of good young players. So they've got the right sort of foundations in place to really push the club on to potentially League One. You never know. But again, don't want to put too much pressure on them, because they've done superbly well so far. So yeah, they should be very proud of their achievements.
Absolutely. And what about you, Ned? How impressed have you been with Sutton? And one particular question is, can they maintain this?
I mean, certainly I was surprised. I've been surprised, but I have been hugely impressed, and not, even when they started the season quite difficultly. I think it was before they'd sorted their home pitch out. They weren't winning games, but they were in games, and they were constantly giving a good showing of themselves. And even then, I thought, if this is what Sutton are going to be like this season, if it's going to be a few wins, then fair play to them, because it's they've come and they're giving everyone a proper game. And now that's sort of turned into results, and these aren't just fluky results. They're deserving of wins, the wins that they're picking up. And in that sense, I do think, we're looking at a team that there's no reason why they won't be up there come the end of the season. As Chris says, not only is it wide open in League 2 this year, but equally, like, the way the league is set up with those 3 automatic promotion places and the 7 and then the 4 sort of playoff places, there is chances for teams to really force their way in, and there's no reason why Sutton can't do that this season. It would be a hugely impressive achievement if Sutton's first ever season in the EFL saw them secure promotion to League 1. I mean, as Chris says, not to put the dobbers on them, not to put too much pressure, but I'd absolutely love to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the fairy tale, you could say, is definitely there to play out. I mean, again, the League 2 table's been impacted by postponements, but Ned, I'll stick with you here. It's better to have the points on the board all the time, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I touched on it previously that, we're just at the start of this sort of second wave of postponements and stuff now. We don't know how long everything's going to be pushed back. And that makes you feel as if it could be real chaos at points when it comes later in the season. And that's only going to play it into Sutton's hands with with having these points on the board. I think a massive 3 points, for momentum. But as you say, to get them ahead of what looks to be a sort of strange month or so coming up.
Yeah. Elsewhere in League Two, Rochdale 3, Newport 0. Jake Beasley amongst the goals with a brace. This was an impressive win for Rochdale, wasn't it, Chris? They'd been 7 without a win. I don't know if we're having a few technical issues there, Chris. Can't quite hear you. Ned, it's impressive, isn't it? This win for Rochdale.
Yeah, definitely. Rochdale's a club I've got a lot of time for.
Right, well.
Yeah, you step in, Ned.
I'll step in. Rochdale's also a club I've got a lot of time for, to be honest. I think on the verge of claiming this win for a while. I mean, each their last 5 games pretty tight. Things didn't quite fall for them, and it's finally come against Newport. Particularly impressed with I think Jake Beasley, as you said, 2 goals and an assist. That's 11 goals, 2 assists for him this season. But yeah, I think they've been unfortunate coming off on the wrong side of some pretty tight games over the last few weeks, and so to pick up a win, not in a tight game, but a comprehensive one, I think a huge boost for Rochdale, and nothing they don't deserve, to be honest.
Because Newport are still sitting in the playoff places in League Two, but where we're talking about Sutton taking advantage of the postponements, Newport haven't done that, have they this weekend, Ned?
No, they haven't. But equally, I think as much as this was a situation of Rochdale sort of finally catching that win that's been evading them, I think maybe this was luck sort of catching up on Newport a little bit. Couple tight games in recent weeks where tight victories against 2-1 against Port Vale, 3-2 against Sutton United, red cards for the other sides in both. It's gutting, I guess, as you say, not to get those points on the board, particularly we've been talking about how important they are. But I think it's just a case for Newport of saying, perhaps this defeat was coming, time to dust ourselves down. They're still just 2 points back from the automatic promotion place, I think, and 2 big games coming up in Leyton Orient and first Forest Green. So I think, as I said, it's disappointing, certainly, but for them, it's a situation of just, saying that's a 3-0 defeat, that this happens in League Two. We press on and try and get a couple of results against 2 really decent teams in Forest Green and Leyton Orient.
Yeah, plenty of twists and turns for sure to come in League Two. All right, that concludes the weekend review. Thanks to Chris and Ned for joining me, and anybody who's got in the comments and got in touch with us this morning. If you're watching on demand, please do like, share, get your comments in. We do always read through them. Chris there with the apology for his bad Wi-Fi. So that's good to see. It's good of you, Chris. Christmas spirit. Coming up later today on Football League World TV, we've got the EFL Transfer Zone with Sam Rock and Ben Wignall. So make sure you catch that. And until then, take care.